everyone, and Happy New Year, and welcome to Old Just Pets podcast. I am Maria Lee Driver, a brand new pet parent, along with our veterinarian and specialist, Dr. Andrea Dunnings from East Atlantic Animal Clinic. Welcome, Dr. Andrea Dunnings.
Happy New Year, Maria, and Happy New Year to everyone out there. Thank you so much for joining us. It's always exciting when a new year starts. So I hope everyone is ready to have some fun this year.
Yes. We're going to have such a fun and packed full information coming into 2025. So you guys, you're in for a treat today.
Absolutely. And with it being the beginning of the year, January for a lot of places around the U.S. tends to be a very cold month. So we thought we'd start the year by talking about the winter time and what to do with your pets during the winter time. How about that?
Yes, because I'm telling you, as a brand new pet parent, I couldn't see my dog out there cold. So I just had to go out and start being a pet fashionierist. And I started buying my baby all kinds of stuff, and it was just him. And now he's all chubby. I don't think he can get into it. But my red miniature poodle, I think he can sport it. So I'm looking forward to sharing these pictures with you guys throughout the podcast, because I think he can do this. Because I want him to be warm. He doesn't look like he's warm enough. So that's what I'm going to talk to you about today, Dr. Dunnings, because do they get warm enough? Is the coat really warm enough?
So, different breeds have different types of coats. And some of the coats are a little bit more slick and less dense. And some of the coats are very dense and heavy. And, when you think about those pets that do well during the wintertime, it's typically those pets that have a more dense coat. So your Siberian Huskies, your Alaskan Malamutes, your St. Bernards, it's those types of dogs that have such thick undercoat that really protects the skin, and that's what keeps them warm during those times of the year. For depending on which part of the U.S. you're living in, or which part of the world you're living in, for that matter, winter temperatures can vary so drastically from place to place. But here in Georgia, we usually recommend that if the temperature is dropping, 40 degrees or below, that you start thinking about what's happening, with your pet and how warm they're going to be if you're going outside for a walk, or if your pet happens to stay outside for long periods of time. And, you also have to take into consideration those parts of the country that actually have snow on the ground. Because even though they have fur on the top part of their paws, their paw pads, which are on the underside of their paw, can be very sensitive to cold conditions. So, if you're going through a very deep, heavy snow or hard packed ice, there are things that you can do, to protect your pet's coat and their paws. And so that's where some of the fashion trends have come from. But let's face it, nowadays people are very comfortable buying their pet dogs, especially, sweaters and coats and, hoodies and everything. So there are those dogs that really need it and should have it on. And there are those that are wearing it for fashion, which is fine too. And then, you do have those few breeds that are just your sturdier breeds that are meant for, really, really cold temperatures. But I think one of the things that, is pretty sad that a lot of people can relate to is, those ASPCA commercials. Hi, music. Those ASPCA commercials that show the pets that are outside in the sleet and the snow and the shivering, and look like they haven't, had good access to, food and shelter. So we certainly don't think that we have any audience members who, have pets in that condition, but we just want everyone to be aware of when you should consider taking care of taking those extra measures, to make sure that your pet is staying warm and healthy during the cold.
And the wonderful thing about when we talk about fashion, I mean, you have fashion shoes, you got fashion boots.
Mm-hmm.
Those things, are they okay for the pets? How often should they wear stuff like that? Because some people, especially Peter like, look, that's abuse. And I'm like, how could that be abuse? But they're like, it's not natural. Let a dog be a dog. So what do you think about that, Dr. Dunnings? Because everybody don't have these curls.
So again,
like me. Curls like me.
I know. But everyone has to also keep in mind that pets, even though they have their differences from us, there are a lot of similarities. And so it's not also just about the breed of the pet and the coat of the pet, but you also have to think about those that don't regulate their body temperature that well. So, to take a puppy that's 2 months old out in 30-degree weather, that little puppy is not going to have the ability to regulate their body temperature well enough to make sure that they stay nice and warm. So last thing you want is for a pet to become hypothermic and end up getting sick. But the same can happen with older dogs, especially one of the things that comes to my mind is like your typical Jack Russell Terrier that's like 13 or 14 years old. By that age, they're considered a geriatric pet. They need to bundle up a little bit before they go outside, because they're going to go outside in 20-degree weather like we're having right now, and they're going to start shivering just like we would shiver without the coat.
That's when they need that vest on.
That's when they need that vest on. Exactly.
They need to put that vest on.
And it's not like we're saying that you have to have, the hat on them and the vest, and the pants and the shoes. We're not saying.
Gotta put the sweater on. Gotta put that sweater on.
Oh, look at that. That's
they gotta have their fleece jacket on.
I love it. It's so cute.
And they're like, we gotta have our fleece on. Ain't nothing like having our fleece on.
Exactly. So the whole key is you really just want to be mindful of where your pet is, one, in their stage of life, and two, their coat condition. And for people that get their pets groomed regularly,
yes,
if the hair is cut short, well, then that's easier. It's easier for the skin to be exposed, to cold temperatures and cold winds. And, when the weather person starts talking about wind chills, down in the teens and whatnot, well, that's not just important for us. It's also important for the pets. And a lot of the news stations nowadays, when they're talking about frigid temperatures, they will also mention, don't leave your pet out in the cold during this time period, because now they are aware as well that pets can be susceptible to having hypothermia issues. So again, it's all about thinking things through, knowing your individual pet, knowing a little bit more about your pet's breed, and kind of what climate that particular breed is used to being in and thriving in. That makes a difference. I mean, you wouldn't take Score and expect him to go, be able to run with the sled dogs in Alaska.
No,
I mean, that's
perfect example. Yes.
It's that kind of thing that we're talking about. So again, and clothing for pets has become a trend, and they're all different price points. We're not saying that you have to go out and buy, the Gucci
no
for your pet, but you can get inexpensive clothing articles from a number of different retailers. And I actually had a picture of this one young lady that I met at a festival, and her company is called For the Culture Pet. And some of her outfits were actually, you know how Oprah, when she had her TV show, Oprah's
Favorite things.
she would do the Oprah's favorite things.
Uh-huh.
Was some of her sweaters were picked as part of Oprah's favorite things.
Uh-huh.
And this particular picture doesn't have that on there, but let me see if I can pull it up for you and show you the link. But again, you know, like I said, there are all kinds of options.
They know I'm over here talking about them, and they are just in the conversation.
Exactly.
They are just like, you, mommy, you gotta get us in.
So you can see here.
That is so cute. Yes.
Security,
yes.
African American.
Yes.
Banned from the kitchen. Don't pay not one bill.
That is so
I only
cute.
love my bed and my mama.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, that's who she is. And I just thought her stuff was very cute. So I thought I would share that with the audience, and there's her contact information if anybody's interested in that.
Dr. Dunnings, I have to ask you this. I know for a fact I got my dogs trimmed during around November, Thanksgiving. They were trimmed. But the groomer, she cut them down real low, and I was like, "Oh Lord, they won't have no fur for the winter." But now it's the hair's growing back, so I feel a little better. But I've been asked on my different platforms, especially on social media, how often should you shampoo your dogs or cats? Therefore, especially in the winter time, I guess I want to say, does that anything slows down for us, them going outside? I mean, in the summertime, you know, there's hot, you know, they shed, and they shed in the wintertime too. But should the grooming be less, especially when it comes to shampooing? We always discussed the length of the hair, but shampooing and whatnot, should that change? Should it be more oil on their skin, more so? Because with like our hair, we secrete oil. And we know that the oil is what provides to keep, you know, things off our scalp, like dandruff and bacteria. So I'm asking this, is it the same thing for pets? Should we be mindful of not over shampooing, especially in the winter when they might need that extra oil or whatever they secrete in their skin?
Yeah. So in general, and again, this varies a little bit depending on the coat of the pet, but in general, you don't want to bathe a pet any more frequently than once every 10 to 14 days.
Okay.
You know, their skin and their coat is different. Well, obviously the coat is different according to the breed, but their skin is also different. And if you bathe them once a week, you can dry the skin out. And you, like you said, you do want to have or leave that natural barrier, that natural level of oil in the skin. And there are some breeds, there are some pets that have allergies, for example, that produce a lot of sebum, which is, you know, oil-based typically. And it can get smelly if you don't, you know, bathe them within a certain frequency. But even with those dogs, oftentimes weekly shampooing will still end up stripping the coat a little bit too much. So in general, not more than every 10 days, but most dogs do fine with every 10 to 14 days. During the winter time, I think it's more about keeping the coat groomed, you know, brushing them really well, because a lot of times the coat has gotten thicker. So you want to make sure that you're brushing the coat or combing the coat, depending on, you know, which type of hair pattern it is, just to make sure that you're removing any hair that might be shedding or any excess dander. But a lot of times you can go down to, you know, a monthly shampoo during the wintertime if it's really cold outside, you know, and I'm talking temperatures consistently less than 40 degrees. Now here in Georgia, you know, it's a little different because December, it might be 60-degree weather and, you know, a little bit more humid. So you might be okay still doing a bath, you know, every 2 to 3 weeks. But if you're living someplace and it's consistently 35 degrees outside, you shouldn't need to bathe the pet more than once a month in that particular scenario. And in some cases, you might even be able to get by, a little bit longer than that if you're brushing the coat on a regular basis.
Well, listen, I need to know that information because I've had people ask me that, and I was like, I think it has something to do with the oil on their skin, just like our oil that we secrete on our scalp. So I'm glad you cleared that up for us. Now, we talked a lot about the dogs. What about the cats? Can the cats get a little coats and vests? What do the cats do? Because if we look at cats that having fur, so we just think automatically they already covered.
Yeah. So, cats are not small dogs. I think I've said that on one of our previous podcasts, and I think it's important for people who don't know a lot about cats to keep that in mind, because you cannot expect a cat to do the same thing that a dog will do. They are quite frequently independent creatures. However, there are some that do enjoy having a little sweater on, during the wintertime if they're a short breed or a short-haired breed. But in general, most cats, if they're long-haired, they've already got some level of density to that undercoat that keeps them a little bit more protected. And a lot of times they don't need it, unless it's getting truly, less than 35 degrees outside or so. But in those instances, most people will bring an outside cat in, or at the very least, if it is, let's say, a barn cat or whatever, at the very least, they will have like a warm area that the pet can stay in at night that they know that they can go to every night and be warm and curl up and be outside of the elements, or away from the elements, I should say. But the same thing, with cats, they are very persnickety about their appearance. Persnickety, they really are. They groom themselves more frequently than dogs do, and they tend to keep themselves cleaner, than dogs do. So the need to give a cat a bath is a lot different than a pet. And most cats, quite honestly, don't really enjoy the bathing process. There are some that do, especially those that, get the full groom on a regular basis. If they're show cats, a lot of them will do really well with bathing. But you have to, be very mindful of not stressing a cat out too much when you're giving them a bath, because that is one thing that can happen. And you don't want them to, end up more agitated and stressed just because you wanted to give them a bath, So to that end, there are some sprays that are waterless. There are waterless shampoos, and then there are mousse formulations that don't have to be rinsed off.
Right.
A lot of those work really well. I know my cat Monica, I used a mousse for those time periods that she was turning a little oily, and outside of that, I had a waterless spray formula that I would use, and then I brush her really well before and afterwards, and she was fine with that. So it again, it depends a little bit on knowing your pet, but I would be very surprised if someone said that they had a cat that was willing to get a bath every 2 weeks. That's more the exception than the norm. So again, you have to know your pet and what's going to go over well and what's going to turn into a battle. So you don't want to end up with all the battle scars on your arm and your hand because you tried to put the cat in some water.
Well, Dr. Dunnis, I really appreciate that. And also, our Oh Just Pets family, I just want you guys to keep Dr. Dunnis in your prayers, because 17 years, she had her cat Monica, and she recently had to put her in cat heaven. And we just want to say our hearts are out to you, and prayers and blessings. And may you find comfort at this time, because I know that that could be a lot. 17 years, having anything for 17 years, I don't care what it is, and it just is not there anymore. It's a big change. So our condolences to you.
Thank you so much for that, Maria. I do appreciate it. Monica she was a special cat. She walked up our driveway. I don't know where she came from. I'd never seen her before. And we didn't have a lot of stray pets in our neighborhood. I lived in a different neighborhood at the time that she showed up, but we didn't have a lot of stray pets in the neighborhood. And so I don't know if I lived on the cul-de-sac. I don't
Mhm.
know if someone drove up there and put her out the car. I don't know if she, escaped from a house and couldn't find her way home. But we were lucky because she was truly a very special kitty, and she came at just the right time and got me personally through some hard times, and my family as well. And we we loved her and still love her very much. Thank you very much for that. I appreciate that.
You're so welcome. You're so welcome. So, Dr. Dunnings, time is flying, but the major tips for just keeping your pets safe, even the pets that's outside, what recommendation do you have for, because all dogs aren't in the house. But
Hmm.
we already discussed cats. Cats will find a place to keep, even if they get on their car, which is
Hmm.
dangerous.
Right.
I've seen and heard of very personal accidents with cats under a warm car because they're trying to stay warm. And if
Right.
you start that engine, it can actually pull the cat up, and that's the demise of the cat.
Exactly.
But or they get inside the engine, same
Hmm.
thing.
Hmm.
Um, but for those who have dog houses outside,
Uh-huh.
what is your recommendation on how to winterize this doghouse? Because in
Hmm.
the summertime, people are like, oh, it's warm outside, they're fine. But in the wintertime, what should they have? More straw,
Hmm.
more cushion? What should they have outside?
Right.
And is there a certain degree that they get where you say, okay, they can't really stay out there, that you need to put them on the porch, you need to put them in the bathroom if they're not in? Is it something that you would say to people who have dogs that they keep them outside?
Absolutely. So, dog houses are great, shelter during the summertime, especially, if you live in a very hot, humid area. A dog can seek shelter during in the doghouse during the summer. And during the wintertime, they can provide quite a bit of comfort as well, but you do need to have some kind of padding in there because the wood or the metal or whatever it's made out of is going to get cold and it's going to absorb a lot of that cold. And so if you've got the pet just laying on top of that without any sort of covering, it could be a towel, it could be a blanket. Fleece works really well on the bottom of a doghouse floor. Some people, have sometimes used shavings, cedar shavings, or some kind of shaving that you could put on the bottom of the floor and then put a cover or a towel on top of that, just as an extra layer of insulation. All of those things work really well. I would discourage people against using any sort of warming element because unless you're going to be around to monitor it, if the pet skin is really cold and you put something in there that automatically gets warm, even if it has an automatic shut-off timer, you could potentially end up with a burn on the pet if their skin comes in direct contact with that warmer object. And it all depends on the temperature of the warming object and the temperature inside that doghouse in terms of whether or not a burn can happen. So you want to be mindful of that. But if it's getting down into the 20s, I don't care how nice the doghouse is, consider bringing your pet into at least the garage or the basement, or a bathroom that you don't use that often. If you have a covered porch, just some other area that's a little bit more enclosed. And I'm not saying you have to not use the doghouse. Like you could bring the doghouse itself into the garage. But a lot of times when it starts to get down into the 20s, there's a certain element of wind that's usually associated with that. And what you're trying to do is to protect the pet from all of that wind shear that's happening as well. So, just again, consider what area of the house can you bring the pet in that might provide more shelter than what they actively have outside in just the doghouse, even if you do have like a blanket or, some sort of lining to the doghouse. There is going to become a point in time where the pet is going to need a little bit more. Now, if it's a Saint Bernard, or a Malamute or whatever, 9 times out of 10, they're not even in the doghouse because they're out frolicking in the snow because they live for that kind of weather. But, if you're talking about your typical, lab or, a golden retriever or boxer or, any pet like that, that's that has a much, much shorter coat and a less dense coat, those are the ones that are going to end up struggling the most, and of course your smaller breed dogs are a little bit more at risk too. So again, check the conditions, if it's big enough for you to stick your head in there and you feel like it's drafty inside the doghouse, then think about what it's like for your pet inside there and see what you can do to seal it a little bit more, to pad it with something to insulate it a little bit more, and then to try to top it off with some sort of comfy bedding, like I said, a fleece, or you could even get a dog bed and put it inside of the dog house, something that's got higher sides on it that the pet can curl up and kind of tuck in. Even that would be helpful.
That is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
Wow, Dr. Dunnins, where had the time gone?
Wow, is it that time already?
It's that time. Listen, we always say, do we have enough to talk about? Of course we do. We can go on and on and on.
Absolutely.
Because people want to know about their pets. And I just, like I said, I want to thank everybody. We are so excited to bring you more information, more important information that not only as a new pet parent, but people who have been pet parents for years and years. And hopefully we can enhance your knowledge and give you more. Not just enhance, but give you more things that you didn't even know that exist. And Dr. Dunnins, I just want to thank you as always for taking time out to be on Oh Just Pets podcast, because everybody needs to know that it's more than just Oh Just Pets. It's a lot behind that. Oh, I have a pet. Well, what kind of pet you have? What size is your pet? What breed is your pet? What does your pet eat? What does the pet should eat? It's a whole lot. And by you coming on and expressing, like now we talk about winterizing, these are important things that people might not even take in consideration because they're so used to having their pet go outside, play, and not take consideration, like you said, their paws or their short hair, long hair, or just even being outside and what kind of protection it takes. So I just want to thank you so much. I always enjoy these sessions. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Maria. It's so fun. And I'm glad we get a chance to do these sessions, to really help people understand pets a little bit more and how to take care of them a little bit more.
Yeah. So with that being said, you guys will see the next time, which will be next month in February, so we can bring you some more tips. And we have tons and tons of things to share throughout the year. And you can always, if you have questions for Dr. Dunnins, leave a comment, or you can go to ojustpets@gmail.com and leave a comment, and we'll get back to you, or a question. And we can get back Dr. Dunnins, or I can get back to you and answer. Okay, so thank you guys so much. Until next time.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye, everyone. And Happy New Year.
Yes, Happy New Year.